It's a pleasure and a privilege to meet with you, just as I travel around the country, meeting with so many different devotees, which I find very inspiring and uplifting, because they're all striving to do the same thing that I am. And so when I hear about or see their devotional efforts, their devotional mentality, it inspires me to want to do more. Is that a confirmation? To do more in the service of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Sri Krishna. So, tonight's subject, before I begin, I usually start with the Jai Radha Madhava prayers. I did have the cartel someplace. Oh, okay. A little stiff from the airplane. So tonight I will be talking about how to apply the two most important verses of the Bhagavad Gita. I say most important because Srila Prabhupada quotes them, in my opinion, and I hear every week and often in the middle of the week, different lectures, morning walks, conversations, in which he continues to quote 1865 and 1866, often referred to as the most important, because if you didn't read anything else and you just read those two, you could go back home, back to Godhead. So important are they. And what I want to do is, I know you all know these verses, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, but the question really comes is how to apply them in our daily life. Some of us are living in the ashram and they're performing service in the ashram. Some are having outside jobs. And so there are so many distractions and diversions. How to stay fixed, how to stay pointed, focused. So I'll be dealing with that in particular, and I will leave. This class ends at 7 o'clock. Now I would like to know, whoever has the authority here, let me know, does it have to end exactly at 7? Because sometimes I get into a discussion or a explanation which may take us over. It could take us 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but I can control that. I can restrict it. Yes, Prabhu.
The RT generally starts at 7.
Okay, so we're pretty strict on that because the deities are generally off at a certain time. So I appreciate that, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible in explaining these different points. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Vijana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Vijana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Yasoda Nandana Vajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Vajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Asatura Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anataguti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. And all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll be reading from 1865, Bhagavad Gita, and also 1866, I believe, yes. I'll try to get to 1866, but based on the limitations of time, I doubt if that will happen. But I will read the translations of both. The verse. Most of us know it, but I'd like to go. I will chant it each line. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru Mamma vaishyasi satyam te patijane priyasi me. Translation. Always think of me meaning Krishna. He's talking to Arjuna. Become my devotee. Always worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without doubt or without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Please repeat. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of Him and act for Him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend of Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. So I'll read that again, it's very important. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend of Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Godhead, Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayan, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge. And this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. So that ends the purport, and I would like to begin by uttering my prayer of thankfulness and eagerness to reflect the same ideas and words in my talk. Om Agyana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. A little heavy on my neck. So I'm just going to take it again, pretty much line for line, as to what Srila Prabhupada says and try to clarify if need be and add if need be. But most important, to make certain that tonight everyone leaves with the feeling with the sense, with the desire to want to think of Krishna more and more than ever before. That's what I'm here for. Otherwise, I have no purpose. To simply tell you what you already know is good, but my business is really to inspire you to do what you may not be doing, or you may be doing, but perhaps we could do more of. This is the main point. So if I can accomplish that, even for one day, then next year when I come, we can do it for another day. But no, not for one day. One day should multiply into 2 days, and 2 to 4, and 4 to 8, and 8 to 16. Because the more you do something, the more you say something, the more you begin to feel the benefits of something, you begin to become habituated to it. When you become habituated to something, then you automatically desire to do it, because it's almost a part of your nature. So Srila Prabhupada says the most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. Always think of him and act for him. Oh, yeah. Namo Vishnu Vadaya. Bhakti Swami. Shesha Sunyavadi Bhakti. So the first part is very, very difficult, because it says we should always think of him. Not occasionally, not fractionally, not partially, but always. Now, how can we do that? Because no matter where you are, if you're working or serving in the temple, you're doing things. You're dressing the deities, or you're making clothes or sewing for the deities, making garlands for the deities, or cooking for the deities, or cooking for the devotees, sweeping the place. And you're trying to do them all very carefully and very thoughtfully and very devotionally. So if that happens, where's the chance to actually think of Krishna? And the big question that comes to my mind is, how are we to think of Krishna? Now, there are some persons I know who do think of Krishna, but their thought of Krishna is not as it really should be. You can think of Krishna with some sense and feeling that he is the Supreme Lord, and I'm working for the Supreme Lord. Boss, finished, now I get on with my service. In other words, no more thinking of Krishna, just think of the service. I know that this is for the Supreme Lord, and what more do I have to think of? I'm doing devotional service, and if I do it, well, I'm progressing, I'm advancing. Who could argue with that? We can't argue with that. If we are progressing and advancing, fine. The question is how fast are we progressing? How greatly are we progressing? Some are progressing very slowly for good reason. Some are progressing faster for good reason. And I like to deal with these particular points in tonight's talk. You can think of Krishna, as I sometimes see, especially the newer persons, they want to get the job done, and they do want to get the job done nicely. They want it done with some meticulousness, with certitude. So they just think just of what they're doing. And that's fine. For anyone new, if you can just even accomplish that, that's a great thing. But after a period of time, when you've learned to do the thing and to do the service and do it well, you've adjusted everything in your mind that you have to put this here, put that there, put this on top, put this on the bottom, and it's become habitual. The next thing is how to think of Krishna all the time. So simply thinking of Krishna, if that goes on continuous, where we just think pretty much robotically, mechanically, I do this, I do that, and I do that. I have no thought of Krishna whatsoever. Just doing the service. As I said already, you will get benefit from doing the service, even if you don't think of Krishna. Because it's devotional service. It's service dedicated to Krishna. And Krishna appreciates everything that we do, whether we do it with love, or whether we do it with a little love, whether we do it even without love, but just doing it because we know it's right and it's good and it's useful, and Krishna appreciates it. Those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, to those who are constantly devoted to those who always worship me with love and devotion, and offering me a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, Krishna says, I will accept that. So he's not putting all these little qualifications there. He's simply saying, whatever you offer me in love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. When Krishna accepts something, that's a blessing. But as I've already implied, there are all kinds and all degrees of blessing. Blessing doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. Just as, for example, when a mother, she has a child, she can give him a mild hug, she can give him an intense hug, she can give him a hug that he's never had in his life. It feels like the air is just being pumped out of his, out of his lungs, and he can hardly recover. Because she has so much love that she's investing in that hug, that the child actually feels so much intense love from her and knows that he loves her. Or a mother can just give him a little kiss on the top of the head or a pat, and that's it. So these are different degrees of blessing. And Krishna is no different. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. What is the surrender? That's a whole subject in itself. But surrender means to give one's body, one's mind, one's thought, one's thinking, one's feeling to Krishna. Here are my words. I dedicate them to you, Lord. Here are my thoughts. Here's my words. Here's what I'm doing. This is for you, Lord. So this is the process of surrender. And to the degree that we surrender, and here I'm coming to the main point, to that degree does Krishna reward us. The greatest reward that Krishna can give, as we see in our scriptures, is he rewards us of himself. You get food and clothing and shelter, and those things are fine to help life go on. But what do you do with your clothes? What do you do with your food? What do you do with your home? What do you do with all these things? Home is to be dedicated and offered to Krishna. Home is not your home. Home is not your home. Home is Krishna's home. And whatever you do in the home is for the glorification, is for the love, is for the affection, for the pleasure of Krishna. When we begin thinking like that, then we become less attached to the home and more attached to he who truly, really, absolutely owns the home, which is the Supreme Lord Krishna. This is one of the ways of becoming more and more Krishna conscious, remembering Krishna more and more. When you step into your apartment or you step into your home, you say, I am coming to Krishna's home, and I'm so grateful to him that he's allowing me into his home. Yes, you're paying the rent, but you're really not paying the rent. Krishna is giving you the job. Krishna is enabling you with the intelligence that he has, which is supreme, to do your job. If he takes away your intelligence, you'll be just sitting there, what do I do? Can't do anything when intelligence doesn't work. But when Krishna gives you intelligence, and sometimes even gives you more intelligence than you might ordinarily have because more is needed for the job, then Krishna is enabling you to do the job. He enables you to get your, paycheck. He's enabling all these things. So if he's enabling them, and you take this and now you buy a house or you have an apartment, you pay your rent, then whose place is it? He gave you the money. He made arrangements. He says, well, I don't see him giving me any money. Well, you don't have to see him. All this is being done invisibly. Krishna states the Supersoul exists in every atom of creation. So he's in here, he's in here, he's in your pants, he's in your hand. Okay. So he's in the floor. He's everywhere present. Well, if he's everywhere present, then what can stop him? What can prevent him from making all these specific arrangements that I just mentioned for us to have a house, have a home, have a car, or have a boat, or have trees, have fruits and vegetables and fruits, all the things that we need, and have an altar and have deities? What is to prevent him, since he's everywhere present and he's all powerful? He's all-knowing. He knows everything. He knows everything about us. He knows our weaknesses, our failings, our strengths, our abilities. So once we get this understanding that Krishna is helping us in so many ways, rather than just ignoring them, you step into the house where you don't even think. Generally, people don't think, well, this is my house. Or you turn on the water. Well, That's the water that I pay. I pay the water bill every month. That's why I'm getting water. No, that's not why you're getting water. Krishna makes the water come. So Krishna stops the rain from coming, as it did in Los Angeles for many, many years, and you run into a drought, and then you find that your water is rationed, and if you go over it, you pay more. So Krishna is in charge, and he does these things for good reason, to help us to understand that we are not all in all. We tend to think because we accomplish things, we do things, we get applauded for those things, we're praised for those things, that we feel good about ourselves for those things. He wants to knock us down a peg because we forget that it is by His grace, by His kindness, by His sweetness, by His love, by His concern for all of us, especially the devotees, that these things are coming by His invisible action and are enabling us to go on with our spiritual life. This is a very, very important point. Let me move ahead on the purport. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. Well, an official meditator, he's speaking of persons who simply sit down and pull their arms like this and hold like that, and for a half hour, they either go to sleep or they stay awake and may chant Om, which is good because it's the name of God. But Srila Prabhupada is saying, this is an official thing. We want to go from official and formal to some informal and unofficial, which means more spontaneity. Spontaneity means the love and affection and expressions of wanting to give Krishna enjoyment, communicating with Him through speech, through song, through dance, all these things. This is not official. You're not sitting like this. You're dancing, your arms are moving one way, another way, you're jumping up and down, one foot crossing the other, and this is your flow of expression of love for Krishna, okay? So he doesn't want officialdom. Just kind of let your love come out. We all have love, every one of us. Most of our love is for ourselves. But by dancing for Krishna and singing for Krishna, glorifying Krishna, reading about Krishna for His pleasure, or even reading to Krishna, if you have deities, you can read to Him every night. You say, well, how do I know He's listening? Well, He's omnipresent, He's everywhere. So the problem is I have to see, I have to hear. That's how we've been guided, that's how we've been trained, that everything we have to see. And that's the scientific approach. If you don't see it, don't assume that it's there. Right? Isn't that science? But now I'll ask everybody, just to divert for a moment. So everybody sees my hand. What's on the hand? Anybody see? Tell me what's on my hand besides skin?
Number 10.
Huh? Number 10? What did you see? Huh? Did you? But you see my palm. Okay, so that's all that we're all seeing. So the question is that all there is? My palm, my skin, the lines which are there, is that all there is? It was one of our teachers in Los Angeles. She's what do they call it? Microbiology teacher, and she teaches at a very prestigious university. So I was talking to all of those students. I said, well, what do you all see? They all said everything that you said. I see the palm and so forth. I said, so if I tell you that there are literally thousands of little creatures crawling all around my hand, will you believe me? Well, of course not. I don't see them. Now let's put them under a high-powered microscope. And you see all these little things crawling around because they're microscopic. And they're all there. So seeing is not always believing. Because if you see, our senses are limited. And when the senses are limited, then what we see is not always what is all there. There are 4 defects that conditioned souls have. One is we make mistakes. We are in illusion. We have imperfect senses. And we have a tendency to cheat. So imperfect senses is exactly what I just spoke about. So we start with some faith, understanding that all the things that are going on in the universe, which are going on in such an intelligently designed way. I mean, we know where the moon is going to be tomorrow because it's regulated. We know where the sun is going to be tomorrow. We know where certain planetary planets are going to be tomorrow because they follow a regulated path which has been set in motion by Krishna. That's intelligence, you see. Intelligence means regulation. It means orderliness. It means things in sequence which results in a particular result, which follows to a particular result or a particular end. So the point is this, is if all this intelligence is present, or if you take a computer, it has so much intelligence, but the intelligence has been given by whom? By human beings. And then once you tell it what you want it to do, then it will do. If you just take a computer and you buy it from the store and put it on your table and say, okay, I want you to compute this mathematical problem, you can just wait till the end of time and it's not going to compute anything unless you've programmed it. It has to have a program. Huh?
Actually, that's debatable.
That's what?
The fact that we cannot talk to computers. We might be able to in the near future.
Yeah, but still, there has to be an original person who sets in motion something. It doesn't just set itself in motion, you see? Unless you get a computer which is told or taught to set something else in motion. But there has to be somebody, an intelligence, which first designs it, just as we have an original person, the Supreme Lord, that sets everything in motion. I don't want to get into a discussion now, okay? Because it's not the time. If you don't agree, we can, at the end of you can educate me a little bit more. Oh, huh? Right at this point, I'd like to just carry the point, because then we will miss the main point, is always think of Krishna. Never forget Krishna. All the injunctions and the prohibitions of the scriptures are the servants of Krishna. So all the things that are in the scriptures, the things which are in, when I say the things, I mean the statements, the injunctions which are there, the regulations and the rules, they all add up to one main point. And the one main point that they come to is that we should always think of Krishna. I was coming to this point, I'd like to continue it. But the question is how to think of Krishna. I already explained the one point, and it definitely does give some benefit, and that is the mechanical. But that can only give so much benefit. The next kind is that you actually have some feeling. We actually are doing some service, and there's some feeling for Krishna, but we're really not thinking of him. There's just a nice feeling of affection, which is good. But we're not thinking of Krishna. It's just an affectionate feeling. And then we go to another type of thinking of Krishna, where we actually think deliberately, intentionally, of the form of Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time perform your prescribed duty of fighting, with your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. You will come to me without a doubt. So there he is telling Arjuna that even though you're going to be fighting a battle, and it's a very difficult battle because he's going to be fighting so many thousands of persons who are going to be trying to kill him, he still says, depend upon me. Keep your mind upon me, and I'll get you through this, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 1857 and 58. In all activities, just depend upon me, and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, I, mine, my love, I love me, if you act in that consciousness, then you will be lost, Krishna says. You need to depend upon me, and I will get you through this, because I'm all-powerful, he says. And the power that you have comes from me, Krishna says. And if you begin to think it's your power, something that resulted from what you did, and I had nothing to do with it, then you're just a fool. because that's generally how people often work. I did this and now I have that. But ultimately, Krishna is in charge. He's in the heart. He sees everything. And he can give us certain benefits, or he can hinder us from gaining certain benefits. If you have a disease, you can go to a doctor, one doctor. He may heal you by giving you the proper medication. Another doctor, you have the same disease, and he gives the same medication, but he doesn't heal. So there are reasons for all of these things which happen. Ultimately, Krishna is in charge, and ultimately, he is creating the result. Krishna again mentions in the 18th chapter, I am seated in everyone's heart, and I'm directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So he's in the heart, directing us, giving us our karma, karma meaning what we deserve to receive from as a result of what we have performed in the past. Like a ball, if you throw it against the wall, then it bounces back. So the action is the throwing of the ball, the reaction is the ball bouncing back. So, generally speaking, in material life, people are acting just in that manner, like a mathematical equation. You take 1 and you add 1 to it, you have 2. You take 2, add 2 to it, you have 4. In the sense of karma, that means an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It's mathematical. But that's not the way it works for devotees. Karma for an ordinary person who has no knowledge of these things that we're talking about tonight. He has no knowledge of it. He doesn't know who he is, doesn't know why he's here, doesn't have any idea of what the purpose of life is, doesn't even know whether there is or isn't a God, doesn't even know what to do to try to even find out. He's in total ignorance, like an animal. He doesn't know, he just acts by instinct. So a non-devotee is in a very, very precarious and very, very troublesome situation. He often doesn't know what to do or what he should do, and often makes mistakes based upon not having the foundational knowledge that is important to enable him to become better, to go higher, to go deeper in realization of who he truly is, namely the soul. This is who we are, the soul that exists within the heart area. And next to the soul is the super soul, Paramatma. So one who is in ignorance, he just gets a result of his actions. But one who is not in ignorance, who is a devotee, who is trying very hard to please Krishna. And as I already mentioned, the devotee who tries very hard to give Krishna pleasure, in other words, he's thinking in terms of, and he's communicating, I hope this will give you pleasure, my Lord. And if it will not, tell me what I must do to make it give you pleasure. He is genuinely and definitely and strongly concerned about the Lord's pleasure, because that's all he lives for. That is his life. That is his truth. That is his all. And when he receives from within, do this, you get a flash, something within. Okay, oh yeah, I forgot that completely. Yes, thank you. And you start doing it, whether it's you're cooking, you're putting this particular spice in, or you're taking down the flame, or whatever it might be. But Krishna from within, he can guide us, he can direct us. And when we learn to depend upon him as our all in all, he loves to give us guidance. Like every parent, he loves to give guidance and direction and protection and focus, and so that the child will grow up in such a way that he'll be as happy as he possibly can, based upon ability and quality and capacity. So Krishna is a sentient being. The more we communicate with him in a very loving fashion, in a very sweet fashion, in a very dependent fashion, in a very petitioning fashion, in a very glorifying fashion, he's very pleased with this. And if we do it in that manner, then we gain his what? What do we gain? We get his grace. What is grace? Grace is when Krishna feels very good about what we're doing, and wants to give us as much help, as much support, as much direction as we deserve at that point in time. Okay? So I see we're getting close to we only have 5 minutes left. So I'm going to wrap this up. As I said, this is generally a 2-hour lecture. But tonight it's a little tight, and I'll be happy at the end of the article, which will come in, and to speak with any of you about any of these points. Perhaps I omitted certain things, or perhaps I left you in a state of quandary or confusion in certain areas, especially towards the latter part of the purport. And I'll be happy to just further discuss this if you'd like that. After the article, there is nothing planned here? Is it everything over at that point?
Yes, there will be prasadam, but you can speak Maharaj.
Would it be all right? Yes? Okay, because there are a number of points here really which should be discussed, especially when Srila Prabhupada says that you should focus your mind almost exclusively and entirely on Krishna. And that really throws and flaws many devotees, and it really requires a little explanation in terms of what Srila Prabhupada is asking us to do and why he's mentioning that there. So again, the main point, which I'd like to leave everyone with, is that, as it says, Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, he says, do it for me. Do it for me as a love offering. Let the heart which is hard become softened, and I will soften it, he says. I will sweeten it. But we have to do our part. So that doing whatever you're doing, you're typing something, this is for you, Lord. You have a computer, put a picture of Krishna right in front of the monitor. So when you take a little rest, my Lord, I offer whatever I have just typed for the last 20 minutes, I offer this to you. May you be pleased to accept it. I beg you. I simply want to develop more love for you so that I can eventually, my love will be like the way your love is for me, I want my love to be for you. And that way there will be a union of love, and in which you will be pleased to the max, and I will be pleased to the max, and I will want to share this with everyone and anyone, because that kind of pleasure, which is transcendental, which is divine, which is innermost, is the kind of pleasure that everyone is seeking but never finding. And that is because they are seeking pleasure externally, outwardly, and not inwardly. Okay? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So we have 3 minutes for a question. Yes, please answer, ask it good and loud if you can, because unless you have a microphone that he can have. No? It's okay? Good.
We have a list of must-read books that
I'm hardly hearing you. Would you kindly come up right over here, and then I'll be able to hear every word, and everyone will take the benefit of your question and hopefully my answer. Yeah, come on in, come on a little bit. It's all right. Get good and cozy. There's no problem. La, 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 la.
I was wondering if you have a list of must-read books.
Yeah, the same ones that Srila Prabhupada gave. Those are our must-read books: Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. They come, and also Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction. And after you've read those umpteen thousand times, then we can take a few others. But even though there are many others written even by devotees which complement, they don't oppose, they complement and support and aid and abet your understanding. They take different angles of vision on some of the points that, and those angles of vision often come from the fact that many devotees, especially senior persons, they've attended many of Srila Prabhupada's personal conversations, room conversations, morning walks, and so you get a lot of information there as well, and they're not always in the books. So it doesn't mean that we can't read other books, but they should all be in total, complete line, usually things that Srila Prabhupada said, or devotees who have attended those and have heard them and have never forgotten them because they were very important. Okay? Does that answer your question? Yes, Mataji?
Does Krishna say that he will come again?
I'm not hearing, I'm sorry. If somebody wants to repeat, or you can come.
Krishna told that he will come again in human form to be with the human.
What did she say? In a human form. Well, he has come again in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was about a little more than 500 years ago. That is Krishna. Krishna is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to start the Yuga Dharma, Yuga Dharma is the way for Kali Yuga persons born in Kali Yuga. How will they achieve God realization? So Lord Chaitanya said, my mind went a blank. He said, chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Chant the holy name, chant the holy name. If you want to achieve God realization, there's no other way, no other way, no other way. Now there is other ways, but they are not suitable for this particular age. In Satya Yuga, the form was meditation. In Treta Yuga, the form was elaborate sacrifices. In Dwapara Yuga, the form was worship, elaborate worship ceremonies. And in Kali Yuga, the May is chanting of the holy name. So Lord Chaitanya came 500 plus years ago to institute, and that's what this whole movement is based upon, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as he enunciated them to Rupa Goswami, who further enunciated them to other devotees who took them up, as like Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Gaurkishore Das Babaji. Just give me 10 seconds. And therefore, Krishna has come again. Okay? Is that clear? He doesn't have to come in a blue form. He came in a golden form there, and with the sentiments of Srimati Radharani. Okay? And there's reasons for that, but that's a whole other talk as well. Thank you all very much for listening. And as I said, for those of you who would like to stay a little later after the doors, after we go to the Arctic, please feel free to do so. If I've confused anyone, please allow me the grace to try to unconfuse you. That is my greatest desire. And we can all then leave, and I hope with one particular point, one particular idea, and that is, I must try to remember Krishna always, because that will gain me such blessing, so much happiness as I can never even conceive. I'm talking from my personal experience, with all due respect to Srila Prabhupada, without whose mercy I would not even be speaking tonight. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.